Subscribe to the channel for more intense mafia romance stories and thrilling drama. Bruised and broken, she pleaded, until the Mafia King roared, "Touch her and die." Rain hammered the empty streets of Chicago like bullets from the sky. Streetlights flickered, struggling to stay alive, casting long, trembling shadows across the abandoned warehouse district. Inside one of those warehouses, a young woman knelt on the cold concrete floor, her hands shaking, her breath coming out in short, painful gasps. Blood stained the sleeve of her torn jacket. Her lip was split. One eye was already swelling shut. Her name was Lena Carter, and tonight she was certain she was going to die. "Please," her voice cracked as she looked up at the men circling her. "I didn't steal anything, I swear. You've got the wrong person." Her words earned her laughter, cruel, mocking laughter. "Everyone says that," one of them sneered, nudging her shoulder with the toe of his boot. "You think we dragged you here for fun." Lena's heart slammed against her ribs. She tried to crawl backward, but her hands slipped on the damp floor. Panic tightened around her chest like a vice. She had been in the wrong place at the wrong time, leaving her night shift at the diner, cutting through a shortcut she had used 100 times before. She never saw them coming. Now she was surrounded by men who smelled of gun oil and expensive cologne. Men who didn't blink when someone begged. A tall man stepped forward, his face half hidden in shadow. "You know who you stole from, girl?" he asked calmly, almost kindly. "You embarrassed us." "I didn't," Lena whispered, tears streaking down her cheeks. "I don't even know who you are." "That was a mistake." The man's expression hardened. "You don't know." He leaned down, gripping her chin hard enough to make her cry out. "Then let me educate you. You're standing on territory owned by Adriano De Luca." The name hit her like ice water. Everyone in the city knew that name. Adriano De Luca, the Mafia King. The man who ruled Chicago's underworld with ruthless precision. People said he was a ghost, a myth, a devil in a tailored suit. They said if he wanted you gone, you disappeared before sunrise. "I didn't take anything from him," Lena sobbed. "Please, I'll do anything, just let me go." Her knees gave out completely, and she collapsed forward, pressing her forehead to the floor. This was it. This was the end. She could already imagine the sound of the gunshot, the sudden silence afterward. "Boss won't like loose ends," someone muttered. A gun clicked. Lena squeezed her eyes shut. Then, enough. The single word cut through the warehouse like thunder. Every man froze. The temperature in the room seemed to drop as slow, deliberate footsteps echoed from the far end of the building. Lena dared to lift her head. A tall figure emerged from the shadows, wearing a dark coat that looked untouched by the rain. His presence was overwhelming, like the air itself bent around him. The men straightened instantly. "Be boss," one of them stammered. Lena's breath caught in her throat. Adriano De Luca. He was more terrifying than the rumors. Sharp features carved from stone, cold, unreadable eyes. Power radiated off him without a single word spoken. He stopped a few feet away from her, his gaze dropping to her bruised face, her shaking hands, the blood on the floor. Silence stretched. "Who did this?" he asked quietly. One of the men swallowed. "She was caught snooping, sir, we thought." "You thought," Adriano repeated, his voice still calm. Too calm. He took another step closer to Lena. She flinched, instinctively raising her hands to shield herself. For a split second, something flickered in his eyes, surprise, maybe even anger, but it vanished just as quickly. "She's terrified," he said. The men exchanged confused glances. "And she's unarmed," Adriano continued. "So tell me again why she's bleeding on my floor." No one answered. Lena's body trembled uncontrollably. She didn't understand why the most dangerous man in the city was defending her, but she clung to the moment like a lifeline. "I didn't steal anything," she whispered again, barely audible. Adriano crouched down in front of her, bringing himself to her level. The men stiffened, clearly uneasy. Kings didn't kneel, not for anyone. His eyes met hers. "What were you doing here?" he asked. I was just walking home," Lena said. I work at a diner. I cut through here every night. I didn't know. Her voice broke, and she shook her head helplessly. Adriano studied her face, as if searching for a lie. Whatever he saw made his jaw tighten. Slowly, he stood up and turned to his men. "Everyone," he said, his voice suddenly sharp as a blade, "back off." The warehouse went deathly still. One man hesitated. "Boss." Adriano's gaze snapped to him, lethal and absolute. "Touch her," he roared, his voice echoing off the concrete walls, "and die." No one moved. Lena stared up at him in disbelief, her heart pounding so loudly she was sure everyone could hear it. She had gone from begging for her life to being protected by the very man people feared most. Adriano looked down at her once more. "Can you stand?" he asked, his tone softer now, almost controlled. She nodded shakily, though her legs felt like they might give out. He extended a hand. After a brief hesitation, she took it. His grip was firm, steady, nothing like the rough hands that had hurt her earlier. As he pulled her to her feet, Lena realized something that sent a shiver down her spine. Whatever had just begun between them. There was no turning back. The men stepped back instantly, forming a wide circle as if an invisible wall now separated Lena from danger. Adriano De Luca stood beside her like a shield, his presence alone enough to silence the room. Lena's knees wobbled, the adrenaline draining from her body all at once. If Adriano hadn't kept hold of her arm, she would have collapsed again. "Get her a chair," he ordered without looking away from her. A chair appeared immediately. Adriano guided her down, his movements controlled but not unkind. Lena lowered herself slowly, every bruise screaming in protest. She kept her eyes down, afraid that if she looked at him too long, this moment of safety would vanish like a dream. "Leave us," Adriano said. The command wasn't loud, but it was final. One by one, the men backed away, their boots echoing as they exited the warehouse. Within seconds, the massive space felt emptier, quieter, yet somehow more intense. Lena realized she was alone with the most dangerous man in Chicago. Her fingers curled into the fabric of her jacket. "Why?" she whispered. Adriano turned to face her fully. "Why what?" "Why did you stop them?" she asked, her voice shaking. "People don't just survive being brought here." His gaze sharpened, as if the question amused him. "You know a lot for someone who claims to be innocent." She swallowed hard. "Everyone knows." A pause stretched between them. Adriano studied her like a puzzle he hadn't expected to find. The bruises on her face darkened his expression, though his voice remained even. "Tell me exactly what happened tonight. Don't skip anything." So she did. Lena told him about the diner, the late shift, the shortcut. She explained how someone had bumped into her near the alley, how moments later she'd been grabbed and dragged inside the warehouse. She spoke quietly, afraid that raising her voice might shatter his patience. When she finished, Adriano said nothing for a long moment. He turned away, pulling out his phone. "Bring me Marco," he said into it. "Now." He ended the call and looked back at her. "The man you described works for me," he said, "which means someone made a mistake." Lena's heart sank. "So this is still my fault." Adriano's eyes flicked to her, sharp and offended. "No," he said firmly. "It means my people acted without confirmation, and that is unacceptable." Before she could respond, footsteps echoed again. A younger man entered, his confidence faltering the moment he saw Adriano's face. "You called, boss?" Marco asked. Adriano didn't waste time. "Did you verify the girl before touching her?" Marco glanced at Lena, then back at Adriano. "She was seen near the docks last week. We thought." "You thought," Adriano repeated, his tone deadly familiar. "And because of your thoughts, an innocent woman is bleeding." Marco's face drained of color. "Boss, I—" "Enough," Adriano snapped. "Get out, I'll deal with you later." Marco hurried away without another word. Lena stared, stunned. No one had ever defended her like that, not with that kind of authority, not without hesitation. Adriano exhaled slowly and turned back to her. "You're safe," he said. "No one will touch you again." Safe. The word felt foreign. Lena laughed weakly, then winced. I don't feel safe, she admitted. I know, he replied. He removed his coat and draped it over her shoulders before she could protest. It was warm, heavy, and smelled faintly of smoke and something expensive. The simple gesture caught her off guard. I'll have a doctor see you, he continued. Then I'll take you home. Her head snapped up. You don't know where I live. I will, he said calmly. That should have frightened her. Instead, it made her feel strangely relieved. The doctor arrived quickly, cleaning her wounds and checking for anything serious. Adriano stayed nearby the entire time, silent but watchful. Lena could feel his eyes on her even when she didn't look at him. It was unsettling and comforting all at once. When the doctor finished, Adriano offered her his arm again. This time, she didn't hesitate. Outside, the rain had slowed to a drizzle. A black car waited, its engine humming softly. Adriano opened the door for her, another unexpected act. Lena slid into the back seat, clutching his coat tighter around herself. As the car pulled away, the city lights blurred past the windows. Exhaustion hit her like a wave. She leaned her head back, her eyelids growing heavy. You should sleep, Adriano said. I'm afraid to, she murmured. He was quiet for a moment. I won't let anything happen to you. She wanted to believe him. Against her better judgment, she did. Minutes passed in silence before she asked, Why me? Adriano looked out the window, his reflection faint in the glass. Because you didn't lie, he said, and because I recognize fear that comes from innocence. Lena studied his profile, the hard lines of his face softened by passing streetlights. She wondered what had made him this way, what had stripped kindness from him, if it ever existed at all. The car slowed, stopping in front of a modest apartment building. Lena blinked in surprise. This is my place. I know, Adriano said. He stepped out first, then helped her carefully onto the sidewalk. Standing so close to him, Lena felt small, fragile, yet she also felt protected in a way she never had before. This doesn't mean I'm free of trouble, does it? She asked quietly. Adriano met her gaze, his expression unreadable. No, he said honestly. It means you're now under my protection. Her heart skipped. Protection from a mafia king came with a price. She knew that much. And what does that cost? She asked. Adriano leaned closer, his voice low and steady. That, he said, we'll find out together. As he watched her walk toward her building, Lena sensed the truth settling deep in her bones. Being saved by Adriano De Luca was only the beginning. Sleep didn't come easily to Lena that night. Every time she closed her eyes, the warehouse returned, cold concrete, mocking laughter, the click of a gun. She would jolt awake, heart racing, only to remember Adriano's voice, steady and commanding, promising she was safe. That promise echoed louder than her fear, and sometime before dawn, exhaustion finally claimed her. Morning light crept through her curtains, soft and pale. For a brief moment, life felt normal again. Then she noticed the unfamiliar weight still resting on her shoulders. Adriano's coat lay folded neatly on the chair beside her bed. The sight of it made her chest tighten. Last night hadn't been a nightmare. It had been real. Her phone buzzed. An unknown number. She stared at it, dread curling in her stomach, then answered. Hello. Did you sleep? Adriano's voice asked. She sat up instantly. Yes, I mean a little. How did you get my number? I have my ways, he replied calmly. Are you in pain? A bit, she admitted, but I'm okay. Good, he said. You're not going to work today. I can't afford to miss. I've already handled it, Adriano interrupted. Your manager won't be expecting you. Lena frowned. You didn't have to do that. I know, he said. I wanted to. The line went quiet for a second before he continued. I'm sending someone to pick you up. Her pulse spiked. Pick me up for what? So we can talk, he said simply. In person. An hour later, a black SUV waited outside her building. Lena hesitated before stepping out, nerves buzzing under her skin. Two men stood by the vehicle, their expressions neutral but alert. One opened the door for her. The ride was silent, the city slowly giving way to wide gates and towering iron fences. When the SUV stopped, Lena's breath caught. The estate beyond the gates was massive, elegant, and intimidating all at once. "This is where he lives," she whispered. Inside, Adriano waited. He stood near a tall window, sunlight outlining his figure. Without the shadows of night, he looked even more imposing and impossibly real. He turned as she entered, his eyes briefly scanning her face, as if checking that she was still in one piece. "Come," he said, gesturing toward a seat. Lena sat, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. "Why am I here?" "To explain," Adriano replied, "and to offer you a choice." Her stomach twisted. "I'm listening." He moved closer, not crowding her, but close enough that she could feel his presence. "What happened to you last night was my responsibility," he said. "That makes you a target." Her heart sank. "A target for who?" "For anyone who wants leverage," he said. "Or revenge." "So what, I just live in fear now?" she asked bitterly. "No," Adriano said. "You live under my protection." She looked up at him sharply. "That sounds like a cage." A flicker of something, respect maybe, crossed his face. "It can be," he admitted, "which is why I'm giving you a choice." He straightened. "Option 1, I erase last night. I pay you, relocate you, and you never see me again." Her breath hitched. "And option 2? "You stay," he said. "Here, where I can protect you properly." The room felt smaller. "You're asking me to move into a mafia mansion." "I'm asking you to survive," he corrected. Silence fell between them. Lena's mind raced. Leaving meant abandoning her life, her job, everything familiar. Staying meant stepping into a world built on danger and power she didn't understand. "Why are you really doing this?" she asked softly. Adriano's jaw tightened. "Because I don't like owing debts," he said, "and because you shouldn't pay for my men's mistakes." She studied him, searching for manipulation. She found none, only blunt honesty. "If I say no," she asked. "I'll still protect you," he said, "from a distance, but understand this, distance is weaker." Lena exhaled slowly. "I need time." "You have 1 day," Adriano replied. The rest of the day passed in a strange blur. She was given a guest room, quiet and beautiful. A maid brought food she barely touched. Every sound made her tense, every hallway reminding her she was far from home. That evening, she wandered into the garden, needing air. To her surprise, Adriano was there, sleeves rolled up, standing near a stone fountain. "You don't look like someone who enjoys gardens," she said before she could stop herself. He glanced at her, then smirked faintly. "I don't." "Then why are you here?" "Because it's quiet," he said, "and because you're thinking too loudly." She huffed despite herself. "I don't know how to make this decision." Adriano stepped closer. "Then don't think of it as a permanent one," he said. "Think of it as temporary safety." She met his gaze. "And you? Are you always this reasonable?" "Only when it matters," he replied. Something shifted between them in that moment. Not romance, not trust, but understanding. "People like you don't save people like me," Lena said quietly. Adriano's eyes darkened. "People like me don't usually try." She realized then that whatever line she crossed by stepping into his world, Adriano De Luca had crossed one too, by letting her matter. As night fell, Lena returned to her room, decision still heavy on her chest. She stood by the window, looking out at the estate lights glowing against the dark. Tomorrow she would choose. And whatever she chose would change her life forever. Morning arrived with a weight Lena could feel in her bones. The sunlight filtering through the tall windows of the guest room was warm and gentle, completely at odds with the storm inside her chest. Today was the day she had to choose. Stay under the protection of a mafia king, or walk away and hope the shadows didn't follow her. She barely touched her breakfast. Every bite felt heavy. Her thoughts kept circling back to Adriano's words, "Distance is weaker." He hadn't threatened her. He hadn't forced her. That almost made the decision harder. A knock sounded at the door. "Come in," she said quietly. Adriano stepped inside, dressed in a dark suit that looked as sharp as his gaze. He paused when he noticed the untouched food. You won't think clearly if you don't eat. I won't think clearly no matter what I do, she replied. Something like a smile tugged briefly at his lips. Fair. They walked together through the estate grounds, the silence between them not uncomfortable, just heavy with meaning. Finally, Lena stopped near the fountain where they had spoken the night before. I've decided, she said. Adriano turned to face her, his expression unreadable. Tell me. I'll stay, Lena said, her voice steady despite the fear coiling in her stomach. But not as a prisoner, not as a favor I owe. His eyes sharpened with interest. And what are you asking for instead? Honesty, she said, and the freedom to leave if I ever feel trapped. A long pause followed. Adriano studied her like he had the first night, measuring, weighing. Then he nodded. Agreed. Relief washed through her so suddenly her knees almost buckled. That's it. That's it, he said. You'll have your own space. No one touches you without your permission, and if you choose to leave one day, I won't stop you. She searched his face. Why does it feel like there's something you're not saying? He met her gaze evenly. Because there is. Before she could press further, the sound of raised voices echoed from inside the house. Adriano's body went rigid, his attention snapping toward the noise. What's wrong? Lena asked. Stay here, he said sharply. I'm not. Lena, he warned, his tone leaving no room for argument. She stayed, watching his back disappear through the doors. Minutes passed, then shouting, then silence. When Adriano returned, his jaw was tight, his eyes cold. What happened? She asked. There's been a breach, he said. Someone leaked information about you. Her blood ran cold. Leaked to who? To people who think hurting you will get to me, he said, which means staying here just became non-negotiable. Fear surged, followed by anger. So much for my freedom. You're safer angry than dead, he replied. Trust me. That night, Lena couldn't sleep. The estate felt different now, less like a refuge, more like a fortress under siege. She paced her room until frustration pushed her out into the hallway. She found Adriano in his study, staring at maps and files spread across his desk. You should be resting, he said without looking up. So should you, she shot back. He sighed and leaned back. You're not good at following instructions. No, she agreed. I'm good at surviving. That earned her his full attention. People are coming for me because of you, she said. I deserve to know why. Adriano was silent for a long moment. Then he stood and moved toward the window. Because I spared you, he said, and because in my world mercy is seen as weakness. She stepped closer. So protecting me makes you vulnerable. Yes. And you did it anyway, she said softly. He turned to her then, his eyes dark and intense. I don't make that mistake twice. The words sent a strange shiver through her, not fear, but something dangerously close to connection. A sudden explosion shattered the night. The building shook, alarms blared. Lena gasped as the lights flickered. Adriano moved instantly, grabbing her arm and pulling her behind him. Stay close, he ordered. Gunfire echoed in the distance. What's happening? She shouted. An attack, he said grimly. They're testing me. Men rushed past them, shouting into radios. Adriano guided Lena through hidden corridors, his hand firm on her wrist. You said I'd be safe, she said, panic rising. And you are, he said fiercely, as long as you're with me. They reached a reinforced room, the door slamming shut behind them. The noise outside felt muffled, distant. Lena's breathing came fast and shallow. Adriano faced her, his hands gripping her shoulders. Look at me, he said. You're not alone, do you hear me? She nodded, forcing herself to meet his eyes. Minutes passed, then more. Finally, the gunfire stopped. A voice crackled over the intercom. Perimeter secure. Adriano exhaled slowly, the tension easing just a fraction. He didn't release her immediately. When he did, His hands lingered a second longer than necessary. That, Lena said shakily, wasn't part of the deal. No, he admitted. It was the cost. Silence settled between them, heavy but unbroken. You can still leave, Adriano said quietly. After tonight, I won't blame you. Lena looked around the room, then back at him, this dangerous, complicated man who had turned her life upside down. If I leave now, she said, they'll never stop coming. He nodded, probably. And if I stay, she asked. His gaze locked onto hers. Then you become untouchable. The truth settled deep in her chest. This wasn't just about protection anymore. It was about power, loyalty, and lines neither of them could uncross. Lena straightened her shoulders. Then I stay, she said, and I don't hide. A slow, approving smile crossed Adriano's face. Good, he said, because this world doesn't spare the weak. As the alarms fell silent and the estate returned to uneasy calm, Lena realized something terrifying and undeniable. She hadn't just stepped into Adriano De Luca's world. She had chosen it. The days after the attack blurred into a tense routine. Lena learned quickly that safety in Adriano De Luca's world came wrapped in rules, watchers, and unspoken dangers. Armed guards were everywhere now, silent, alert, always aware of her presence. At first, the constant protection made her feel like a glass object about to shatter, but slowly something shifted. Fear hardened into awareness, awareness into strength. She stopped flinching at every raised voice. She started meeting people's eyes. Adriano noticed. He didn't comment, but the way his gaze lingered told her everything. One afternoon, he asked her to sit in on a meeting. Just listen, he said. The room was filled with men twice her size and 10 times her menace. Maps, shipments, names, illegal things spoken casually, like weather updates. Lena stayed quiet, absorbing it all, realizing this empire wasn't chaos. It was order enforced by fear and loyalty. When the meeting ended, one man scoffed softly, muttering something about civilians. Adriano stopped cold. She's here because I say she is, he said, and because she belongs under my protection. The word belongs echoed in Lena's mind long after the room emptied. That night, she confronted him. I don't belong to anyone, she said. Adriano didn't deny it. Then don't act like prey, he replied. Act like someone who understands the game. So she did. She asked questions. She learned names. She memorized escape routes and codes. Adriano began trusting her with more small things at first, then bigger ones. And with every shared moment, the air between them grew heavier, charged with something neither dared to name. Until one night when the past came crashing back. Lena was alone in the garden when a familiar voice spoke her name. She turned to see Evan, her ex-boyfriend, pale, shaking, clearly terrified. They're going to kill me, he whispered. They think I sold information. I didn't. Swear. Her heart sank. Evan had always been trouble. Why are you here? She asked. Because they said you're the reason, he said. They said you're under De Luca now. Before she could respond, guards rushed in, guns raised. Adriano appeared seconds later, his face dark with fury. Get him inside, he ordered. In the interrogation room, the truth spilled out in broken sentences. Evan hadn't sold information, but he had overheard things, talked too much, enough for someone to twist it into betrayal. Adriano listened, expression carved from stone. He's innocent, Lena said quietly. Adriano looked at her. Innocent people still die in my world, he replied, her chest tightened. Then what does my staying mean? She asked. Silence, heavy, dangerous. Finally, Adriano spoke. It means I'll give him one chance. Evan was exiled, stripped of protection, forced to leave the city before dawn. Lena watched him go, guilt clawing at her chest. You saved him, Adriano said. That's not weakness. But it will cost you. What? She asked. He stepped closer. My enemies now know you influence me. That night, Lena couldn't sleep. The weight of what she'd become pressed down on her. She hadn't just been protected, she had power. And power painted targets. Days later, the warning came. A message delivered with a single black rose. Give us the girl or we burn your empire. Adriano crushed the note in his fist. They won't touch you, he said. They'll try, Lena replied. The first time, she didn't sound afraid. She sounded ready. I won't be your weakness, she said. Then be my equal, Adriano answered. Training began the next morning, not with guns, but with control. How to read a room, how to spot lies, how to command attention without raising her voice. Adriano watched as Lena transformed, not into someone cruel, but into someone unbreakable. and somewhere between strategy sessions and midnight conversations, the line finally snapped. It happened quietly. A shared look, a breath held too long. Adriano reached for her and stopped. "If I cross this line," he said, "there's no turning back." Lena stepped closer. "I already crossed mine when I stayed." His restraint shattered. The kiss wasn't gentle. It was restrained fire, years of control breaking in a single moment. When they pulled apart, the world felt different, dangerous, inevitable. "They'll come harder now," Adriano said. "Let them," Lena replied. "I'm not running." As dawn broke over the estate, Adriano realized the truth that would change everything. Saving Lena hadn't made him weak. Loving her had made him ruthless. And his enemies were about to learn the price of touching what he chose to protect. The warning didn't come again. It didn't need to. In Adriano De Luca's world, silence after a threat meant only one thing: war was already moving. The estate shifted into lockdown, not with panic, but with precision. Lena felt it in the way guards spoke less and listened more, in the way Adriano's phone never stopped vibrating, in the way the air itself felt sharpened. Yet inside her, something was calm. Fear had burned out, replaced by resolve. She stood beside Adriano, now not as a guest, not as a liability, but as a choice he had made, and one she had made in return. When the attack finally came, it was not loud. No explosions, no chaos, it was surgical. A convoy ambushed at dawn. A warehouse burned by noon. By nightfall, 3 enemy lieutenants were gone. Adriano moved like a storm given human form, cold and unstoppable. Lena saw the cost in his eyes when he returned late, blood on his cuff, jaw clenched tight. She didn't ask questions. She poured him a drink, steady hands, steady gaze. "It's not over," he said. "I know," she replied, and she meant it not as fear but as acceptance. The final move came 2 nights later. Intelligence confirmed the enemy leader's location. Adriano prepared to go alone. Lena stopped him. "You won't," she said. He turned sharply. "This isn't your fight." "It is," she said quietly. "They want me, end it where it started." The room held its breath. Adriano searched her face, seeing not recklessness but certainty. "You stay with security," he said at last. "You don't leave my sight." She nodded. The abandoned docks were soaked in fog, the kind that swallowed sound and sense. The enemy waited with numbers. Adriano arrived with intent. Words were exchanged, brief, poisonous. The leader sneered, eyes flicking to Lena. "So this is the girl," he said. "Doesn't look worth the trouble." Lena stepped forward before Adriano could stop her. "You're wrong," she said. "I'm exactly worth it." The leader laughed once. Then Adriano spoke, his voice carrying across the dock like a verdict. "Touch her," he said, "and die." The same words. This time everyone understood they weren't a threat, they were a promise. The fight ended quickly, not cleanly, but finally. When it was over, the fog thinned, revealing what remained: defeat written in silence. Adriano turned to Lena, checking her with his eyes before his hands ever reached her. She was unhurt, unbroken, standing tall. Back at the estate, dawn broke soft and pale, as if the city itself was exhausted. Adriano stood on the balcony, watching the sun rise. Lena joined him, the morning breeze cool against her skin. "It's finished," he said. "For now," she replied. He looked at her then, really looked at the woman who had walked into his world bleeding and afraid and stood beside him when it burned. "I should have sent you away," he said. Lena smiled faintly. "You couldn't." "No," he admitted. "I couldn't." Silence settled, not heavy now, but earned. "What happens to us?" she asked. Adriano didn't answer immediately. He took her hand, not possessive, but certain. "I don't offer half-lives," he said. "If you stay fully." She squeezed his hand. "I already am." The city would whisper about them, about the Mafia King who showed mercy and the woman who became his equal. They would never know the truth. That mercy had turned into loyalty. That fear had turned into fire. That love, once chosen, had made a king unstoppable. And in the end, it wasn't the guns or the threats that changed everything. It was one moment in a dark warehouse, when a bruised, broken woman begged for mercy, and a Mafia King chose to roar, "Everyone, back off."